Can a foreign buy a property in Portugal? A non-resident can buy a property in Portugal. Can you buy a property in Portugal without being citizen? All those questions in different forms pop up very often in the comments on my YouTube channel. I thought to make a special video for that to actually answer these questions once and for all. So let's roll it, guys. What's up, guys? Welcome back to my channel, and if you are new here, I am Luisa, and on this channel we are trying to talk about Portugal, moving to Portugal, buying a property in Portugal, living in Portugal, and practically Portugal without the bullshit. I don't know if you can say that on YouTube. Okay, so attractive weather and extremely cheap properties in some of the parts of Portugal make Portugal to be a very attractive, on the top list for foreigners who think, where should I relocate, where should I go and spend the golden years, like we are saying. Someone asked us recently why we chose Portugal to relocate and hopefully retire there, and we have a video about that. I will link it here and then the description why we chose to relocate to Portugal, and there are a myriad of motives, but actually the first thing that came to my mind in answer this person who doesn't know anything about Portugal but he is looking for a country to retire is actually the cost of life. And I know here on my channel I have my fair share of complaining about Portugal and how expensive things are, and I think there is not one video that I don't mention that Portugal is much more expensive than Romania, but still the main aspect, the main reason remains the cost of living. And we are saying the cost of living because we looked for a country where we could retire, and not only retire, live right now with the money that we are making in Romania. So we needed a country with the same or similar buying power as Romania, and also that country had to be at the seaside with an ocean and the sea, and it has to have good weather. And even if you don't put any of these conditions on top of the cost of living, finding in Europe a country that has the similar buying power, or you can retire or live with a similar budget, same as Romania, it's kind of impossible, because in Europe you have kind of like Bulgaria with the cheapest cost of living, then it's Romania, and then it's Portugal or maybe Croatia or other countries. But Portugal, it's not that low on the list of the cheapest countries to live in Europe. So Romania is pretty cheap. It's kind of like, I think, one of the cheapest countries to live in Europe. So when we thought about, okay, we don't want to work in Portugal, meaning to take a real job there or open a business there, we will live there with the money that we are making in Romania. What country can we go and live off that money? Portugal was kind of the only one that met all our criteria, and of course was Greece on the list. Greece was a big contender there, but you know from other videos why we didn't choose Greece, and if you don't know that, go watch the videos why we chose Portugal over Greece. The main thing about Portugal remains the low cost of life. So, can a foreign buy a property in Portugal? And the short and definitive and straightforward answer is yes. There is no restriction. You have the same legal rights as a resident or as a citizen, and you can buy property or land on whatever part of Portugal you choose. So there is actually no restriction. Apart from the fact that there is no restriction on buying land or property in Portugal as a non-resident or as a foreign, on top of that, the government in Portugal also has some incentive for foreigners, especially for non-EU residents, to attract them to buy property in Portugal, and this is the Golden Visa. Golden Visa is a program especially for non-EU residents who are trying to obtain a visa and right to reside in the country, in Portugal, and also work or study. And through this visa, you can buy a property in Portugal. You have certain conditions, of course. We are not going to talk about this. You need someone who knows what he is talking about. I'm just an amateur who read about these things and try to simplify things and present it to you. But if you are thinking about the golden visa, you need to talk to a specialist, or at least someone who knows more things than I. But there is this program, Golden Visa, who is thought as an incentive for foreigners to come in Portugal and invest here in property, and they receive rights to reside, work and learn in Portugal. So yeah, you can say that not only that you have the right to buy property, but you also have certain incentives to come here in Portugal, financial incentive. Of course, there are other kind of incentive for EU citizen. You have a non-habitual residence type of program who helps you save on taxes up to 10 years. But also check other videos for that, because we are not going to explain that here. So how easy is to foreign to buy property in Portugal? Because we heard stories that it's very easy, absurdly easy, and on the other hand we heard story that, oh my god, it's complicated with bureaucracy, and Portugal is one of the most bureaucratic countries in Europe, and so on and so forth. So we have information on both sides, both end of the stick, so to say. So how is it really? The first thing that you need to know is that there are no special requirements, no special documents or legal requirements if you are a non-resident or a non-EU citizen. So you have to present the same documents as a citizen or as a EU resident or a Portugal resident. The first thing that you have to consider, and you absolutely must have, is a fiscal number in Portugal, or número de contribuinte, which is the NIF. And you can obtain this NIF while you are in Portugal. You just go to Autoridade Tributária and obtain this NIF. You can obtain it for yourself. It's not really hard. You just have to go and sit at some lines and make an appointment, and it's rather easy if you are in Portugal to obtain it. And if you are kind of used to bureaucracy in your country, or you don't mind, you want to tackle this thing on your own, or you want to save some money, you are definitely can obtain this number by yourself. But if you didn't need this number before coming to Portugal, let's say for a visa, or you want to save some time, or maybe you don't like to do things on your own, we have a way for you to obtain this number online, this fiscal number online, and fairly quick. So if you are interested in this kind of subject, check the description below, because there I have all the information for you how you can obtain this online. Other thing that you should be aware is that if you are a non-EU citizen, you will need to appoint a fiscal tax representative. So this is a requirement by law. If you are a EU citizen, you don't need that. So only non-EU citizens need that for the duration that they remain non-residents. So maybe in a few months until you buy a property, and if you are planning to reside in Portugal, you have to become a resident, and then you will be a resident in Portugal, and no, you will not be needing this fiscal representative. But for the beginning months, you will need that. And this fiscal representative can be your lawyer, or if you decide to purchase the service of obtaining a NIF from a border, this will be included in the price for the first year. And most people don't need a fiscal representative for a period longer than 1 year, because within 1 year you are going to be settled down in your property, you are going to change the address and become resident in Portugal, and you will not need a fiscal representative. But for those who are thinking only to invest in Portugal and not really reside and become resident, and you are a non-EU citizen, you are going to require this further. Getting a mortgage in Portugal as a non-resident, and on this subject I could talk for hours. I was and I am a non-resident who obtain a mortgage in Portugal with the documentation from a country that nobody heard of, like Romania. I mean, if you are coming from UK or US or any other country, more civilized one, I think this is also a thing that you cannot say on YouTube, but we are going to say it here on this channel. So yes, if you are coming from a more established country, you will find the process very easy, not like myself. I will link here the video about getting a mortgage in Portugal, how it was for us. And we would not stand a chance if we didn't encounter this amazing person, our broker, who actually helped us a lot to get this mortgage, because nobody ever saw at the bank or any bank in Portugal Romanian documentation like balance sheets or statements or legal papers from Romania. From UK, they saw a lot and a ton of documentation. From US, the same. And the legislation is quite the same there, but from Romania. And it was particularly hard for us with the documentation. Even with this, all those things that happened, we obtained the mortgage fairly quickly because of that person who helped us. But as a general information, it's very easy to obtain a mortgage in Portugal as a non-resident. Portuguese banks have no problems lending to non-residents or people who are not citizens. In fact, they prefer it because, people in Portugal don't have large salaries, and the people who are coming and buying the houses in Portugal from other countries usually have much larger budgets and salaries and income, and they prefer to give the mortgages to those people because you are safer to lend than the average Portuguese people. Of course, not as a rule. This is kind of a general feeling. So it's easy if you come from another country with a larger buying power to obtain a mortgage in Portugal. Usually they lend you up to 70% of the total value of the house if you are a non-resident, and up to 80% of the house if you are a resident. So you would have to have an advance like 30%, a minimum of 30% if you are a non-resident. We had like 50% advance, 40 or 50%, and this was a major plus for us. I am sure nobody tells us that it was a major plus, but I'm sure that our financials count a lot. This put together with the help that we have from our mortgage broker made our experience a success. So the advance, the money that you put forward, it's kind of a big deal in obtaining a mortgage in Portugal. So if you want the things to go quickly, thinking of putting a larger advance and not 10 or 20%. You actually cannot do that because the bank would only lend you 70% of the money. In terms of the procedure, you could apply at your chosen bank for yourself. You can apply online if the bank permits it, or if you are in Portugal, you can go at the bank and discuss in person with the bank, no middleman like we had a broker. But from my own experience, it's very hard with the language. They speak English, but some documentation, if not all the documentation, is in Portuguese, and maybe you have some things that you don't understand. Anyway, they speak English, but not everybody and not in all places, and maybe they speak English in Algarve in certain places, or Lisbon and in larger cities, but in a smaller towns, smaller branches, no. So it can be this problem. And also I don't see why you wouldn't work with a broker, because if you find the right broker, you are not going to pay anything for their services, because the broker gets the commission from the bank. So yes, previously me finding that firm that we work with and this person who helped us, we wrote to several companies who asked us money for filing the documents for us, and those money were like 400 euros, 500 euros, 700 euros, so quite a large sum. And at the time that we are searching, we didn't know that we don't have to pay this broker, so it was an amazing stroke of luck that we find someone who told us, no, you don't have to pay me anything, we apply for you, and if you are successful, the bank will pay us. So look for a broker like that, or drop me an email if you want a recommendation for this broker who helped us, which is based in Lagoa, in Algarve, but it doesn't matter where it's based. If you are thinking of coming and investing in Portugal, he can help you with obtaining this mortgage. If you don't want a recommendation, just try to look for a broker who will not take money from you, but rather from the bank. So you see, there is no reason for you not to work with a broker and make your life easier. And by the way, this broker spoke English and spoke English very well. Actually, he spoke English better than me. Because funny story here, when we discussed it online, I wrote, and in writing there is no problem, I have auto spelling and things like that, but when we actually met, he was speaking this fluent English and with a nice accent and everything, and I was kind of like stumbling through the words. So yeah, he speaks English better than I do. So yeah, this will not be a problem if you work with a Portuguese broker. Just make sure that he knows English. It's important to work with a Portuguese broker because if he knows Portuguese, he is going to have the connection and the language and the terms to use at the local banks. So yeah, I don't know, for us was kind of amazing the experience and to find this person. And how do you find a person like this besides from recommendation? We send like 30 or 40, I don't know exactly, emails to every company we can find on the internet in Portugal. So just look on the Google, obtaining a mortgage in Portugal, you are going to have a number of sites, and write to each and every one of them, and this is what we did, and we got a response. And of course we triaged the firm based on how quick we got the response back and how nice the people were, and if they of course require us money or not. So you can apply the same system as we did. Pitfalls to avoid for foreigners buying property in Portugal. So this is kind of the last subject I want to touch up on this video, and if you are interested, I can make a follow-up based on your questions. If you have questions, leave in the comments. One of the main pitfalls to avoid when you are buying property in other country, Portugal or otherwise, but usually in the southern part of Europe, is scams. So you know about all the resorts that are built in Spain and abandoned. I can recommend you a good YouTube channel for that, who is filming abandoned and commenting upon this subject, abandoned resorts in Spain. I really like him and I watch him frequently. The same phenomenon, it's not in Portugal, so here we don't have resorts built and abandoned. This is more of a Spain problem, but also in Portugal you can encounter all sorts of schemes and scams, and people who represent themselves as the representative of big and large companies who are constructing these wonderful resorts, and in fact they are scammers. And there are a lot of stories on the Facebook groups, people who give money to these representatives, so called representative, and they were cheated and scammed out of their investment. The first and foremost, you need to work with a realtor or a person who is registered and properly registered. So all realtors have to be registered at Asociação de Mediadores Imobiliários. So they have to have a license number and be registered there. And this institution has a site, you can verify this license number, and it's very important to work only with a licensed realtor. Also, it's very important to have a lawyer that you trust and put him to verify all the documentation, legal documentation of the house or land that you want to buy, or if you are buying in a resort, all the documentation for that resort, that everything is built within the law and has the proper legal documents. So you will not be in the situation to buy something that doesn't exist or don't have the proper authorization to exist, to be built. Put aside some money and invest and work with a realtor and a lawyer. The realtor is not like you are going to pay the realtor. The realtor is paid by the seller, but you have to find a realtor that you resonate with. And my advice is to find a realtor from a recommendation, someone that can vouch for him, who was working with that realtor and can tell you, from real life and experience that a realtor is a good person who came through and it was a pleasant experience to work with. In terms of lawyers, there are two kinds of lawyers in Portugal. I received these questions before on my channel and I didn't know then, but I research it now, and there are two types of lawyers in Portugal. So there is the solicitador, which is more of a consultant really on the law, and there is the abogado, which is the proper lawyer with a diploma. If you're asking my advice, go with the abogado, the one who has the diploma. I don't put much trust in the diplomas or in the school kind of setup, and I don't say that people who don't have diplomas, they are not qualified. They can be, but for you, a foreign who comes in a country that you don't understand, with laws that you don't know and don't understand the language, it's better to work with people who are certified for the simplest reason, and that reason is that people are not so inclined to break the law because they are going to lose the license. Someone who doesn't have anything to lose, statistically more likely to think of involving himself in a scam. So this is not targeted to one person or another, and maybe solicitador can be more friendly, can be more qualified in practice to work with you, but an avocado for you, it's more safe. So kind of this is how I see things. Another thing to do to avoid a pitfall in Portugal when you are buying a property is to absolutely go to the Portugal yourself. I know that with the pandemic there is this custom of buying property via internet, but this is an absolutely no, because you don't know what you are buying. Maybe someone is showing you a building, but the building doesn't exist, or some pictures that are rendered in a program, and you cannot make the difference between reality, because nowadays pictures are so well done that you are thinking that you are actually seeing an apartment, but they are just pictures made in a program like Photoshop or other programs. So you absolutely must go and see the property. And if you cannot do that, you hire an independent person, like me, for example, or other people on the internet who provide this service. Independent person who is not the realtor, who is not the person who is trying to sell you the property, to go there and film the property, or better yet, other than film the property, they can FaceTime you and go and see with you the property in real time. Of course, there are some realtors who offer this service also, so you can ask them to do that, but an independent third party would be the absolute proof that the property exists, and you get to see what you want. Maybe we can walk with the phone and show you this room and the other room, and we talk about it, and I give you my opinion. I'm not saying that because I want to promote this service, but I just give you an idea what I saw that other people are doing on the internet, and maybe you don't know that this is possible, because I didn't know that this is possible. If someday someone would be interested to work with me on this, I would be happy to, but this is more like an advice. Consider doing that if you don't have the possibility to come in Portugal and look at the property yourself. If you have questions regarding this subject, please leave it in the comments. I would be happy to make a second video on this subject, but responding to your comments, because I don't know, I kind of think I covered all the aspects, the general aspects, but if you have any more questions, I would absolutely love to make a video out of it. Please subscribe and go watch other videos on my channel. They are also about living in Portugal or buying property in Portugal, and I hope to see you in my next one. Bye!